truly a race against time, with disease and pollution killing our coral reefs.
It could cost up to $16 billion to meet water quality targets over the next decade to help save the Great Barrier Reef.
Suffering the biggest bleaching event in its history, a climate change impact draining the very life and colour out of the Great Barrier Reef. Pollutants that suffocate, poison and kill coral.
It's going to take billions, not millions, to repair and bring back the colour of the Great Barrier Reef.
We're going to lose one of the greatest ecosystems on the planet, and we're seeing a scale of loss right now like they've never seen in that entire 450 million years.
Florida's coral reefs are the third largest in the world, stretching 360 miles from the dried Tortugas to the Florida Keys. Those reefs are dying at an unprecedented rate.
Researchers say they were horrified when they discovered that for the first time, mass bleaching had affected the Great Barrier Reef in consecutive years. That global warming was the biggest long-term threat facing the reef. Can the future of this unique wonderland be guaranteed before it's too late?
While the problem may be global, scientists say part of the solution has to be local.
What can we all do to try to solve this crisis?
Coral reefs are one of the most beautiful and diverse ecosystems in the world. But their existence is in jeopardy. As they disappear, those dependent on coral reefs for food, protection, and livelihood are threatened. It's human nature to wonder why, and there are a countless number of explanations, such as pollution, dynamite fishing, sedimentation, overfishing, careless tourism, chemicals, and sunblock, but it ultimately comes down to climate change. More than 500 million people and a quarter of the marine life depend on coral reefs for food, shelter, income, and coastal protection. Reefs not only provide habitats and shelter for marine life, but they also aid in carbon and nitrogen fixing and assist with nutrient recycling. The ocean and its marine life is responsible for contributing 50 to 85% of the oxygen in the Earth's atmosphere. They've existed for more than 400 million years, but the stresses and alterations that are predominantly man-made impose themselves on corals who don't have the ability to adapt fast enough. When the temperature of the water increases, the coral stresses, and as a defense mechanism, it expels its algae through its polyps. As they continue expelling this algae, the coral is left in its colorless, skeletal state as if it's been bleached. Eventually, the corals won't have enough algae left to withstand the harsh conditions of ocean acidification. In an attempt to combat this crisis, we have created Roc, comprised of 3 members, Andrea Park, Lily Enikish, and Joao Carvalho. We plan on conducting a series of experiments to help increase the coral's growth rates. Now let's hear from Roc.
Hi, let's take some time to discuss the proposed experimental setup. The purpose of this experiment is to determine which metal acting as an anode transfers the most electrons to iron rebar acting as a cathode in this galvanic cell setup, and at what rate it does so. We hope to then relate this information with the level of calcium carbonate accretion detected on the iron rebar, as this data is important because calcium carbonate is the chemical that helps form coral skeletal structures. The setup consists of a 40-gallon tank with a water pump and drip system. Inside this tank is where things get interesting. Spaced evenly in the tank are 6 3D printed plastic containers in which we will observe the reaction. For demonstration purposes, one side of the container has been left open for your viewing pleasure. These containers feature 2 slits at the top of their design that will prevent the overflow of water. In addition, 5 small holes are left in the bottom of the container to allow both water and the products, specifically common ions of the reaction, to filter out of the container. The experiment will involve a 2-inch sample of iron rebar suspended by fishing line connected to a plastic rod that fits into the container. In each container, samples of the metals tested will be placed in the container to form a galvanic cell with the iron rebar. How this will be done is still in discussion. However, some of the possibilities include separating each container into 2 halves, with 1 half hosting the test metal and 1 half hosting the iron. The test metal would be in a solution of its ions, and the iron would be in solution with calcium carbonate. The 2 electrodes would be connected with an electrical wire containing a voltmeter, closing the galvanic cell. In this iteration, either a physical salt bridge or a permeable membrane would need to be implemented to relieve the buildup of charged ions in the solutions. Now back to the tank. As the water drips out of the containers, it makes its way back to the tank, whose bottom is lined with coral supplements. This solution gets pumped back into the containers using a power head pump and distributed using a PVC drip system. I hope this quick rundown has given you a valuable insight as to what we plan to tackle here at Roc. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact us. Until our paths meet again, this has been Roc.